What if Darth Plagueis transferred his essence into Anakin Skywalker as he died? This is what we're going to be going over today. Folks, I've done a few stories kind of like this where I really just explore really broad Force powers. I've done like what if Anakin became the Mortis God, a couple time travel ones, just really outlandish stories, but this really goes out there. Might be the darkest story I've ever wrote, so strap in. Let's get right into it. Darth Plagueis stood in the Coruscant apartment with his apprentice, Darth Sidious. For a while now, Plagueis could feel that Sidious intended to betray him and take the power of the Sith all for himself. After all, it was only natural. The apprentice becomes more powerful than the master, and the master is killed. It was the way of the Sith. But Plagueis had recently made two discoveries that changed everything. A few days ago, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi brought a boy to the Jedi Temple. A boy that, through his spies, Plagueis learned was prophesied to be the Chosen One, destroy the Sith, bring balance to the Force. But the boy carried great fear, great darkness, and he was vulnerable. And Plagueis, well, perhaps it was time for a new body, a fresh start. He was wearing a breathing apparatus, and his body just was not what it once was. He was running out of time here. So on the night of the betrayal, Plagueis was getting drunk with Sidious, celebrating his election to Chancellor of the Republic. And late into the night, Plagueis could feel the shift from Sidious. He was no longer hiding his attention, and Sidious charged Plagueis, began to kill him as he drifted off to sleep. Plagueis accepted this, but he played the role of desperation, making it seem like he couldn't believe it was happening, like he had to escape. But in reality, as Plagueis felt his essence begin to fade, he put a power that he'd recently mastered into place. For Plagueis, he'd spent a long time ignoring the idea of essence transfer. He wasn't interested in it. He wanted to stay alive forever in his own body. But he realized recently that simply would not work. His body was deteriorating. His apprentice would spend the whole time trying to kill him. So instead, Plagueis had mastered essence transfer and knew immediately who he would take over. So Plagueis died, but his essence did not. He pushed it out into the Force, searching for the most powerful, but also the most vulnerable presence that he could find, and this took him all the way to Naboo. Plagueis knew the risks of this power. If it failed, or if the boy was strong enough to reject him, he would be sent into an eternal realm of nothingness. But his essence soon found the boy, and he was landing a Naboo starfighter, and the rest of the pilots were celebrating around him. And after another moment, Plagueis sent his essence into Anakin. On the other side of the area, a young Obi-Wan Kenobi carried the body of his fallen master out into the hangar bay. He saw Anakin, and gave a small smile, but suddenly something happened. Anakin fell to his knees, grabbing at his head, screaming out. Kenobi ran over to him, asking what was going on, but Anakin seemed to fight something for about 3 minutes, until he fainted. Darth Plagueis had done it, but something was wrong. He was not at the center of Anakin's consciousness. Rather, he was hidden deep inside of him, stuck, needing to be unlocked. And so Plagueis was trapped inside of the boy's mind. But perhaps this was good. Plagueis would bide his time, sink into the Force, train his consciousness to become as powerful as it can be. So when the time comes to be unlocked, Darth Plagueis can finally control the galaxy, not as a politician, but as the Sith Emperor of all. And for Anakin, he woke up with a strange feeling, like there was something deep inside of him trying to get out. But he didn't mention this feeling to anyone. The Jedi Council already didn't trust him, and he desperately wanted to be a Jedi. So he hid this feeling away, and before long, he was the Padawan of Obi-Wan Kenobi after the Jedi determined that this was just some headache, something strange that was going on, but they couldn't quite put a finger on it. And so, Kenobi would fulfill his promise of training Anakin. And so Anakin trained as a Jedi, while Plagueis trained his mind, hidden away in Anakin, until the boy was powerful enough to accept him. Right now, Anakin had power, but if Plagueis took over the body, then it would immediately crumble from the dark side power. And so Plagueis trained himself, remembering the old Sith Emperor vitiates. And so Anakin Skywalker would train as a Jedi for the next decade, through the Clone Wars, killing Count Dooku, finding out his wife was pregnant, becoming a council member and also a spy for both the Chancellor and the Jedi Council. He was having nightmares about his wife, Padme, dying in childbirth, and Anakin was searching for any answer he could find to save her. He would do anything. And over these 10 years, there was always an itch in the back of Anakin's mind that had grown now to more of a calling of sorts, like there was so much more power deep inside of him, just begging to be unlocked. But Anakin knew it was a dark power. He knew it was dark because over the years, Anakin's body had begun to deteriorate. He could feel himself feeling worse and worse all the time, and the feeling of deterioration only went away when he touched the dark side, like when he battled and killed Count Dooku. Overall, Anakin felt like something was going to just explode out of him if he let it. And Plagueis knew it was time. When Anakin sat next to Chancellor Palpatine in the Opera Theater, Palpatine actually began explaining the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise to him, to himself almost. And as Palpatine went on, Anakin had to grab at his head. He could feel the call, the pull to the power inside of him, and the pain was too much. Finally, after all these years, Plagueis emerged, taking over Anakin Skywalker, and Anakin felt his own consciousness fade. Suddenly, he was only a thought, trapped deep inside of his own mind. He could feel that it was not his own power taking over, but the power of someone else. And Anakin remembered the day on Naboo. He remembered everything, his whole life. Here, trying to save Padme, he realized he was lost. This was something he never expected. He didn't know what to do. There was nothing he could do, except watch from his own eyes, as someone else controlled it. And Palpatine watched, as Anakin convulsed, then came to a complete calm. But he opened his eyes, and Palpatine felt true fear for the first time in decades. Anakin's eyes were the most evil yellow that he had ever seen, and Anakin's presence in the Force was gone, replaced by one that was familiar, the man from the story he just told. Palpatine locked eyes with what was once Anakin, and said his name, Plagueis. Plagueis smiled, a smile that made Palpatine's skin crawl, or perhaps that feeling was real. Plagueis lifted up his hand, and Palpatine felt his body begin to weaken, like his own blood was boiling, his own skin tearing. It was the most pain he'd ever felt, and it was so sudden. And Plagueis spoke to him now. The Sith Lord told his former apprentice, "Long have I waited for this. For 20 years I have been hidden away, with nothing to do except think, plan, train. I am the most powerful being in the galaxy. My trained mind combined with the power of the Chosen One. Your usefulness has come to an end, my apprentice." And with that, Palpatine's body failed him, and he died in an excruciating way. Plagueis looked down at Palpatine's body, crushed and mangled from Plagueis' power, and moments later guards charged in. Plagueis flicked his hand at them, and they died instantly. And he used Force speed to move like a blur through the theater without anyone else seeing him. He had plans. Plans in the Jedi Temple. He needed more power, and the Jedi Council would be perfect for this. And inside the temple, the council was already gathered to discuss Anakin and the next steps in the war. From Kashyyyk, Yoda said that he felt a great disturbance in the Force, like an awakening of sorts, and the council agreed that perhaps the Sith were revealing themselves finally. Obi-Wan brought up Anakin and how he felt much worse in the Force recently, and he told the council that perhaps having Anakin spy on Palpatine was not good for him. But Windu spoke up, saying it was a necessary test for the boy, and once the council must have faith in him. And meanwhile, at the temple entrance, Plagueis, in Anakin's body, was stopped by the Gatemaster and the temple guards. The Gatemaster, a Jedi called Jirok, said he felt something was off in the Force, and the temple guards pointed their staffs at Anakin, as Jirok asked why he was surrounded by darkness. But Plagueis did not have time for this. But it could be fun. He had so much built-up energy, just asking to be unleashed, 20 years of anger, and he needed to get to the council. So here and now, he unleashed a power with his great power combined with the Chosen One that could only be described as Force destruction. Plagueis called upon the dark side and unleashed a wave of it from his palms. The Gatemaster and the guards were disintegrated, and all the Jedi within 100 feet were thrown back into the walls, dying instantly. Once again, Plagueis moved as quickly as he could through the temple. The panicking Jedi could only see a blur, confused, trying to figure out what was going on, and the elevator to the council closed as the Jedi saw who it was. Anakin Skywalker, or what remained of him. As Plagueis jammed the elevator, only he would be going to the council. And the council could feel the chaos below, so the members prepared to head down below when the door to the council opened, and to their surprise, it was Anakin Skywalker. But he was messed up. Anakin looked to the members, eyes blood red and an evil yellow. His face had become ruined. The dark side power that consumed Anakin had turned him gray, wrinkled, downright scary in a matter of just an hour. Plagueis needed more power. He would get it here, and with that power, his body would return. His strength would fully return. And Obi-Wan called out to Anakin, asking him here what was wrong, what happened to him. But it was not Anakin that responded. It was someone else, a gravelly voice taking over, saying, "Anakin is gone." The Jedi were here, including Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Aegon Kolar, Saesee Tiin, Shaak Ti, and a few others as well. And at once, they all grabbed their lightsabers at the same time, igniting them to fight whatever Anakin had become. Once again, Obi-Wan in the council tried to ask what was going on, asking Anakin to stand down, to let them help. But Plagueis had not spent 20 years waiting, taking over the Chosen One, to die here to a group of Jedi. No, he needed them for his own gain. And in a flurry of moves, the Jedi Council confronted Plagueis, their blades humming with sadness, but they knew they must kill whatever Anakin now was. Windu led the charge, his saber clashing fiercely against Plagueis' sheer power, but he never ignited a lightsaber. He used the Force to deflect and push Windu away. Kenobi, Kolar, Tin, Shaak Ti, and Fisto surrounded them now, forming a circle of Jedi. And with a wave of his hand, Plagueis sent Aegon Kolar flying, effortlessly disarming him. Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto lunged, but Plagueis deflected their strikes with ease, using the Force to redirect their attacks back at them, and they tumbled hard to the ground. Saesee Tiin attempted a Force push of his own, but Plagueis countered, freezing him, sending Tin tumbling backwards as well. And Windu pressed on, attacking with a series of strikes. Plagueis parried each blow effortlessly, still without a lightsaber, his mastery of the Force evident, and on a final swing, he grabbed Windu's hands, breaking them, and throwing the Jedi Master backwards. Shaak Ti leapt forward, but Plagueis anticipated her moves, countering with a surge of dark energy that slammed her against the wall. The Jedi had fought valiantly, but Plagueis remained unfazed. He looked around the room. All of the council members were injured, but alive, and those around the galaxy, Yoda, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and the rest that were not here, could only watch this horror as holograms. Plagueis looked around at all of the fallen Jedi, struggling to get up, and he called upon the full power of the dark side. It surrounded him now, and Plagueis blasted out a dark side Force net. He summoned this dark side web to create several strands of energy that ensnared the Jedi in a painful web. Escape was nearly impossible. First, the mesh of strands was nearly indestructible. Second, the Jedi had their stamina sapped when ensnared. Third, the Jedi had their connection to the Force severed when afflicted with this power. And Plagueis was draining the Jedi of their power completely, using the Force to call upon their powers, taking them for himself. He stood here, in the center of the council, and called the Force power from the council, giving all the power to himself. The Jedi no longer had the Force. They were drained, and the web tightened around them, cutting into them. It was ruthless, but before long, the Jedi were dead. Anakin's body had returned to full health from the added power of the council. Plagueis was unstoppable, and he took it all in, feeling the power. He looked to the holograms of all of the Jedi Council members away from Coruscant. They still sat here, stunned and horrified, so Plagueis reached out with the Force, finding them across the galaxy, snapping their necks with ease. All of them died. The Jedi were losing. The Council was dead. And in the temple, Plagueis jumped out of the council window and floated to the ground far below. He landed on the stairs and turned to see the temple. Then, he used the Force to violently shake the ground beneath it, setting up for a destructive earthquake here on Coruscant. All of the Jedi would die. But inside of the council chambers, Obi-Wan felt himself wake up. He was badly injured, but alive, and he could feel he still had the Force. This was good, but he looked to every other council member. They were dead, but he was not. Perhaps there was still a part of Anakin inside of that man. Perhaps Anakin had saved Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan felt the temple violently shake, the ground underneath them giving in, and he ran to the broken window from Anakin, jumping as far out into the sky as he could, landing on a speeder flying through the Coruscant traffic. Obi-Wan watched as the entire Jedi Temple crumbled, deep inside to the ground, and all that left was a giant hole. Thousands of Jedi, gone in a single moment, but he knew where he must go. The one person who can hopefully bring Anakin back. Padme. Darth Plagueis looked to the hole where the temple once stood. Far below Coruscant now was the rubble of the temple, thousands of dead Jedi. But even further below all of that, an ancient Sith shrine. Long ago, the Jedi built their temple here to hide this Sith shrine, keeping the darkness at bay. But today, it would be reactivated. Plagueis jumped down into the rubble and blasted it away with the Force. And over time, he moved his way to find the ancient Sith shrine below everything. Plagueis could feel the great power of it, and finally, he found it, grabbing the shrine, and he began to pour his anger, hatred, suffering. Every dark side emotion was being poured into it, ready to unleash its great destructive power upon Coruscant. But before Plagueis could do it, a voice called to him. A familiar voice. It was Padme. She'd come down here with Obi-Wan on a speeder, and she yelled out, "Anakin, stop! Come back to me!" And Plagueis put down the shrine, feeling Anakin trying to take control back. Anakin and Plagueis were fighting inside of their shared mind, and they turned to see Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Captain Rex on the other side, and there was a clone legion behind them, hundreds of clones lining up, ready to fire if necessary. But Padme walked up to Anakin, grabbing his hand, looking into his eyes, and Anakin felt himself momentarily take back his mind. But it was only for a moment. Anakin got one final good look at Padme and apologized before Plagueis used the full power of the dark side to extinguish Anakin once again, not only hiding him away, but killing the essence of Anakin this time. And the last thing Anakin saw before he was gone was himself stabbing Padme with his own lightsaber, now bled crimson red. Anakin and Padme both died here, and Obi-Wan ordered the clones to fire. Plagueis was now under a barrage of firepower that he could only deflect for so long. So he grabbed the ancient shrine, felt his darkness, and the darkness of the shrine, and he activated it. A beam of light blinded Plagueis for a moment, and it shot out through Coruscant. Obi-Wan, Rex, Ahsoka, and the clones watched as it shot out a power that engulfed them all, disintegrating them, and the wave of power spread through the entire planet. Within minutes, all life on Coruscant was evaporated. Empty speeders crashed to the ground, as well as all of the Republic cruisers, Star Destroyers in the air falling to the ground, with everyone in them dying. Plagueis climbed to the surface to see what Coruscant had become. It was suddenly devoid of all life, devoid of all light, a graveyard for trillions. Ships were crashing into buildings wherever he looked. Everything was gone. He finally had his revenge on the galaxy that abandoned him all those years ago. Coruscant was gone, reduced now to just forgotten rubble, and there was a power vacuum in the galaxy. And Darth Plagueis took off into hyperspace, as news slowly started to trickle out throughout the galaxy. Coruscant was not only lost, it was completely defeated, destroyed, and eventually, Plagueis landed on Mustafar, giving a shutdown order to all of the battle droids across the galaxy. He was the one who helped Sidious plan this entire war. He knew the secrets. The droids were gone. Coruscant was gone. The galaxy was desperate for answers, devolving into chaos, and eventually, Darth Plagueis appeared to the galaxy from the ancient Sith planet of Exegol. He was able to broadcast to every available HoloNet channel, and he began to describe what would happen from here on out. Plagueis told the galaxy that the Separatists were working with the Jedi. The Jedi were traitors, and he, what everyone saw as Anakin, was the only survivor, the defeater of them. But he said that they unleashed a great power on Coruscant, He was the only survivor. He told the galaxy that he saw what the Separatists and Jedi did, trying to take over the galaxy for themselves. And he trailed them to Mustafar, where he was able to shut down the droids. And then Darth Plagueis proclaimed himself as the Emperor, not of the Republic, but a galactic empire, under only his rule. Plagueis told the galaxy that war would come to an end, and if it did not, then any planet that disobeyed his rule would face the same fate of Coruscant. He told the galaxy he seized the destructive weapon that the Separatists used to destroy Coruscant, and he would use it to maintain peace across the galaxy. All Jedi were to be arrested or killed, and clones could choose what side to take. If they chose the wrong side, they would die. And so Plagueis became the new Emperor, building up his rule from Exegol. Clones were either loyal to him, or they could leave. But any rebellion, any Jedi would be met with swift destruction from this empire, and the rule of Darth Plagueis in Anakin's body would go on for as long as he could stay alive. And folks, that's our story for today. I've never really done a super dark side ending like that, but I wanted to try it. Have Plagueis just bide his time for 20 years, come in and kill everybody. Literally. So, let me know what you thought. It went down the darker path, but, we're gonna do that once in a while. I typically do, I debated having Padme bring Anakin back there at the end, but ultimately, we've done that enough, so today I wanted to take the dark path. Let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.